They lost every single war ever since World War II. Their goal was to remove communism from the Korean Peninsula, and we still have North Korea. They waged war on terror, and now we got a record amount of terrorism coming from the Zionists, and all the terrorist groups that the West propped up. They replaced the Taliban with the Taliban. They got smoked in Vietnam. They failed to achieve any of their military objectives in Iraq. Over and over and over again, you see the United States lose. You had Donald Trump who took an L to Yemen, couldn't defeat Ansar Allah. Then you have Donald Trump who were trying to wage war and start a conflict with Iran and realize quickly that they can't accomplish their military objective of getting rid of Iran's nuclear program. So another failure is failure on top of failure on top of failure by the United States military. First, and this is what we've been covering for quite a long time, and this is why I find the NATO left to be extremely detestable. The Hassan Piker left that will have someone like Matt Duss on their show and never push him on why he supports this batshit crazy NATO proxy war in Ukraine, which has completely destroyed their country. And they have an entire generation of Ukrainian men that was wiped out for what? For what? What is all these? What is this death and suffering? What is this war really for? Just so NATO can have access to materials in the Donbass? Because you guys don't want a neutral Ukraine? You must understand, we was always the ones who cared about the Ukrainians. The people like Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna, I grew up Ro Khanna on our show over this. And I see Ro Khanna go on quote unquote left independent media. He's never grilled about this. And I exposed his hypocrisy on why he condemns Palestinian resistance, but he wants Ukrainians, he wants to fight to the last Ukrainian in a war they never stood a chance in. And we explained this concept many times before. There's a reason why you are not seeing nonstop coverage of the Ukraine war from NATO left channels. They never talk about it. You never see Bernie Sanders, AOC, any of these people discuss this war because they don't want people to know the result of what they supported. And in order to get people on board for this proxy war, one thing they've been doing for years is pretending that Russia has been exposed as weak and ineffective. They've been pretending that Russia has been losing, and this is why we got to support the Ukrainian cause. Now, it only takes a few seconds to realize why this narrative is absurd. Like, this is just one of many headlines you can find. Russia's battlefield woes in Ukraine. Go ahead, search Russia losing in Ukraine, and you will see all this delusion from Western leaders. That delusion exists because they cannot sell a war without convincing their population that they are winning, that they are strong, and their enemy is weak. In the same, many people like to rewrite the Vietnam War and pretend that Americans are naturally caring and they was heartbroken over America's gross violation of Vietnamese sovereignty. And amounts. No. It had nothing to do with like what we was doing to Vietnamese people. Americans turned against that war the second they saw American soldiers come back in body bags. My hero, Muhammad Ali, I know everything about his life. White people hated Muhammad Ali. White people love to change history and pretend that Muhammad Ali was their boy. No, this motherfucker was hated by white people more than they hated Malcolm X. Wonder if I can find a number. I wish I knew what the approval rating for white people, but they hated Ali for refusing the draft. It wasn't until later, once Muhammad Ali was vindicated, that white America woke up and was like, oh damn, we really fucked up there. It wasn't until they saw soldiers come back in body bags that they realized that Muhammad Ali made the right choice. And this has been a coordinated strategy by the West for decades now to sell this illusion that every single war that we got into that we won, even though the United States haven't won a war in the modern era. They lost every single war ever since World War II. Their goal was to remove communism from the Korean Peninsula, and we still have North Korea. They waged war on terror, and now we got a record amount of terrorism coming from the Zionists, and all the terrorist groups that the West propped up. They replaced the Taliban with the Taliban. They got smoked in Vietnam. They failed to achieve any of their military objectives in Iraq. Over and over and over again, you see the United States lose. You had Donald Trump who took an L to Yemen, couldn't defeat Ansar Allah. Then you have Donald Trump who were trying to wage war and start a conflict with Iran and realized quickly that they can't accomplish their military objective of getting rid of Iran's nuclear program. So another failure is failure on top of failure on top of failure by the United States military. But why do people believe it's the exact opposite? Like, if you was to ask the random American, most Americans believe that we're the most elite, strong, badass fighting force of all time. They don't know that guerrilla warfare exists. They don't understand that it's more than just big guns that win wars. It's whether you are accomplishing your military goal. And that's because of decades of nonstop government pro-military propaganda. This is because of Call of Duty and all these pro-war propaganda mechanisms via movies, video games, TV shows to convince people that the United States cannot be fucked with. So if we create a scenario where people believe that we will always win, it makes people more likely to support war. Now, will people be more likely to support war when they realize that Ukraine has been absolutely washed on the battlefield? How Ukraine has been checkmated since the beginning of this war? Another geopolitical objective of Biden and Donald Trump. And I shouldn't say names because it's an overall shared ambition by the ruling class, was to separate Russia from China. Was to separate Russia from India. Russia and India is closer than ever now. India and China has came to agreements on security disagreements that they have for years, came closer together. A new axis of resistance has formed because of failed United States policy. Failed United States policy after failed United States policy. And the people who think they're the patriots are the people who think they're the ones who cheerlead for failed foreign policy. That's the toxic form of patriotism that comes from capitalist class brain rot. In communist societies, what we look at and what makes us patriotic, we want to see our country build. I want to see my people thrive. I want to see life expectancy rates go up, which has been declining in the United States. I want to see the homeless population disappear. It's rampant. I want to see this diseases of despair completely disappear. It's at an all-time high. I'm not a big fan of flag pumping. I think all that stuff is nonsense. But the right-wing capitalist brainwashed version of patriotism, which is the standard belief, is the toxic ideology that you root for the criminal ruling class. You're a patriot if you was rooting for the United States against Russia. Those are people who think they're patriots. People who think they're patriots are the people who want the United States to seize Taiwan for China. That's their version of patriotism. The John Bolton style of patriotism. They can see American cities rot. They can see Americans can't cope without antidepressants. They can see just the quality of life for American people falling, but they don't give a damn. People like Mike Pence don't give a damn. He even said that the state of American cities are not his concern. You got to see how there's this barbaric form of patriotism. And there are many people who will say that I'm a traitor to the United States because I unapologetically want to see a close relationship with the United States and Russia. In this situation where we have no conflict, where we have amazing trade, where we are engaged in a way that spans all of our economies, that benefits not only the Russian people, that benefits the American people. The ruling class convinced people that we have to have conflict with other people at all times because it benefits them. It leads to a boost of the military-industrial complex. The same military-industrial complex that would then donate to their campaign, who then buy ads, overcharge for ads on corporate media to keep them pro-war. And then Americans are brainwashed to thinking that cheerleading these wars and hating Russia is what it means to be pro-American. The most pro-American position is the position that we want peace, that we don't want our country to violate international law. Imagine living in a country where you are the global peace seeker in the world. That's why I view to be the most patriotic and admirable position.